The phone buzzed at 5:45 a.m. with that particular aggressive rhythm that screams disaster. You know that sound. The one that means someone's about to ruin your day before you've even had coffee. I'm Ryan Parker, 48 years old, and I've been in this business long enough to know that calls before sunrise never bring good news. The display showed Brooke Hartwell, VP Operations, the boss's daughter. 24 years old and thinks her MBA from some fancy school makes her Warren Buffett. This couldn't be good. I cleared my throat and picked up. Morning, Brooke. Ryan, this isn't working out. No hello, no pleasantries, no human decency. Just the entitled voice of someone who's never had to earn anything in her life. We're letting you go. Effective immediately. I sat up in bed, the cold Dallas air hitting me as I threw off the covers. My ex-wife always complained about how I kept the house too cold, but 8 years in the Navy builds habits that stick. You learn to stay sharp, stay ready. I'm sorry, what? You're not adapting to our new culture initiatives, she said, and I could hear her chewing something. Probably one of those $12 protein bars she always carried around like they were some kind of status symbol. Dad and I discussed it last night. We need agility. Your old school infrastructure, that's holding us back. Old school infrastructure. That's what they called 15 years of building relationships, keeping clients happy, and actually knowing how this business works. I was the guy who remembered that Palmer Oil's CFO hated morning calls because of his diabetes medication schedule. I was the one who talked the Richardson Family Trust off the ledge when our trading platform crashed last summer. You want to know what old school means? It means showing up. It means doing the work. It means not thinking your degree makes you smarter than people with experience. Noted, I said, keeping my voice flat as a drill sergeant's stare. The Navy teaches you not to let emotion show when you're taking fire. Okay, well, good luck then, she stammered. She was expecting a fight, maybe some begging. Sorry, princess. I don't beg. The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a moment. 15 years at Hartwell and Associates gone because some trust fund kid thought I wasn't agile enough. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent the last 2 years training her cousin Hunter, showing him the ropes, thinking I was building the next generation. Guess loyalty's a one-way street when you're dealing with people who've never had to earn respect. But here's the thing about getting stabbed in the back. If you've been in enough firefights, you learn to assess the damage fast and figure out your next move. And my next move wasn't going to be pretty for the Hartwell family. I didn't waste time feeling sorry for myself. That's not how you survive. I swung my legs out of bed and walked straight to my home office. The glow of my monitors cut through the pre-dawn darkness like a lighthouse beam. My company access hadn't been cut yet. Amateur hour. Brooke had fired me at 5:45 a.m., but it didn't roll in until 8 o'clock a.m. That gave me a solid 2-hour window where I was technically unemployed but digitally alive. In military terms, I was behind enemy lines with full access to their communications. I logged into the CRM system and started looking around. Not downloading anything. That's illegal and leaves digital footprints. I just opened files and let my memory do what it had been doing for 48 years. Client preferences, quirks, family situations, the soft intelligence that makes or breaks relationships in this business. See, these kids think everything's in the database. They think client management is just data points in a spreadsheet. They don't understand that Jeffrey Palmer won't take calls on Tuesday mornings because that's when he drives his wife to chemotherapy. They don't know that Richardson's CEO keeps bourbon in his desk drawer and likes to end important conversations with a toast. They don't know that the Blackwood family lost their son in Afghanistan and always want military veterans handling their account. I know these things because I pay attention, because I care, because that's what professionals do. Then I did one small petty thing, call it a parting gift. I went into the calendar system and uninvited the key stakeholders from Brooke's big presentation next week, the one she was supposed to use to prove her worth to the board. I didn't delete the meeting, just removed them from the invite list and turned off notifications. To the system, it would look like a glitch. To the investors, it would look like Brooke had canceled on them. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting people see exactly what happens when you're not there to catch their mistakes. I logged out at 7:30 a.m. and made coffee. Real coffee, black, strong enough to wake the dead. Not that fancy stuff Brooke was always ordering for the office with names I couldn't pronounce. While it brewed, I thought about my next move. See, Brooke made a critical tactical error. She thought my value was in some database, like client relationships were just Excel spreadsheets you could hand off to whoever. She didn't realize that in this business, you don't manage accounts, you manage people. And people don't trust logos on business cards. They trust individuals. They trust me. I pulled up my phone and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in about a year. Lucas Hayes, Regional Director at Summit Capital Group. Lucas had tried to poach me 4 times over the years. Last time I told him I was loyal to the Hartwell vision. Loyalty. What a joke. The clock on my microwave read 7:45 a.m., perfect timing, after the gym, before the first meeting of the day, time to make a call that would change everything. I hit dial. Ryan Parker, Lucas said without preamble. Guy knew his business, knew how to read caller ID, and wasn't afraid to get straight to the point. That's the difference between working with professionals and working with nepotism cases. Morning, Lucas. You still buying lunch for experienced account executives? There was a pause. I could practically hear the wheels turning. Lucas Hayes didn't get to be regional director by being slow on the uptake. Define available. As of about 2 hours ago, I'm a free agent. Brooke Hartwell decided I wasn't agile enough for their new direction. Lucas let out a short laugh that sounded like a bark. Agile? That kid wouldn't know strategy if it bit her on the trust fund. You serious about this? Dead serious. And Lucas? I think the Palmer Family Trust is getting tired of dealing with children. You know what I love about talking to real professionals? No games, no let me think about it nonsense, no checking with committees or asking daddy for permission. Name your terms. Just like that. 4 words that changed everything. 15% bump on base, senior VP title, and I want full autonomy on client transitions. Done. I'll have paperwork in your inbox in 20 minutes. Can you start Monday? I can start now. Even better, I'm sending you our Zoom link. We've got a strategy meeting at 9:00 a.m. Just show up and smile. I want my team to see what real talent looks like. 4 hours. 4 hours after getting fired by someone who probably still asks her daddy for gas money, I had a new job with better pay and actual respect. After 8 years in the Navy and 7 years bouncing between smaller firms before landing at Hartwell, I knew talent when I saw it. But this wasn't about the money. This was about proving a point. By 9:00 a.m., I was showered, suited up, and logged into Summit's video conference. Lucas introduced me to the team like I was some kind of prize recruit, which I guess I was. The difference was night and day. These people had actual experience, actual skin in the game. So, said Ashley Morrison, Summit's head of operations, how do we handle the transition without looking like vultures circling a corpse? I liked her already. Straight shooter, no corporate speak. We don't handle anything, I said. The clients handle it. I'm going to make some calls, let people know where I landed. If they want to follow, that's their business decision. What I didn't tell them was that I knew exactly which clients would follow and how much money would walk out of Hartwell's door. See, when you've been managing relationships for 15 years, you know where the loyalty really lies. The Palmer Family Trust alone was worth $55 million in assets under management. Add in Richardson Oil Services at $35 million and the Blackwood Holdings Pension Fund at $30 million, and you're looking at about $120 million total. That's not just money. That's the difference between a profitable year and a company-killing disaster. Give me the rest of today to make some calls, I told Lucas. By tomorrow morning, we'll know exactly what we're working with. But first, I wanted to watch Brooke's presentation disaster unfold. See, when I uninvited those stakeholders from her big meeting, I created what we used to call in the Navy a situational awareness failure. She was about to walk into that conference room expecting a full house and find herself talking to an empty screen. Around 10:30 a.m., my personal phone started buzzing with texts from people still at Hartwell. Word travels fast in this business, especially when it's disaster-shaped. Dude, Brooke's presentation is a complete meltdown, came a message from Cody Martinez in IT. She's been sitting in an empty Zoom room for 20 minutes asking where everyone is. Another text. Charles just stormed out of his office. Face was red as a fire truck. And my personal favorite, Hunter's running around asking if we got hacked, says the calendar system must be broken. Right about then, my new office phone at Summit rang. It was Jeffrey Palmer himself. Ryan, got an interesting email this morning about some presentation being canceled. What's going on over there? Jeffrey Palmer was 67 years old and sharp as a brand new blade. He'd been in business since before Brooke was even a glint in her daddy's eye, and he didn't suffer fools gladly. "Morning, Jeffrey. There have been some personnel changes at Hartwell. I wanted to give you a heads up personally." "What kind of changes?" "The kind where I'm no longer with the firm as of this morning. I'm at Summit Capital now." Silence on the line. Not the bad kind, the thinking kind. Jeffrey Palmer didn't make rash decisions, but when he made them, they stuck. "What did that girl do now?" he finally asked. "She made what she called a strategic personnel decision. I just wanted you to know where to find me if you needed anything. Ryan, I've been doing business with Hartwell for 8 years, but I've been doing business with you for 8 years. There's a difference. I'll have my lawyers start the transfer paperwork this afternoon. I appreciate that, Jeffrey, but take your time. Make sure it's the right move for your family." "Son, I didn't build a $55 million trust fund by making wrong moves. This is the right move. One down." The Richardson call went even smoother. Margaret Richardson, the family's CFO, picked up on the first ring. "I was wondering when you'd call," she said. "Charles Hartwell left me 3 voicemails this morning, each one more panicked than the last. Something about technical difficulties with their calendar system." "Technical difficulties," I repeated. "That's one way to put it." "Where did you land?" "Summit Capital. Lucas Hayes speaks very highly of your operation, and we speak very highly of yours. Consider us interested in a conversation. 2 down. The Blackwood Holdings call was personal for me. Military family, lost their son in Afghanistan 3 years ago. They specifically requested a veteran account manager because they wanted someone who understood service and sacrifice. "Ryan," said Colonel Blackwood when I called, "please tell me you're not calling to say goodbye. Not." "Goodbye, sir. Just a change of address." "Thank God. That Hartwell girl called me last week asking about optimizing our portfolio for maximum agility. I told her the only thing that needed optimizing was her understanding of how real business works. I'll send you the Summit paperwork this afternoon, Colonel. Outstanding. And Ryan, good hunting. 3 down. $120 million walking out the door." But the real fireworks were just getting started. By noon, the situation at Hartwell & Associates had gone from bad to full-scale meltdown. My phone was lighting up with messages from people still inside the building, and let me tell you, it was better than watching cable news. "Emergency board meeting called for 2:00 p.m. Texted Jessica Walsh from accounting. Charles looks like he's about to have a stroke." Another message from Cody in IT. "They're asking me to audit your computer access. Want to know if you compromised anything. I told them the logs show you didn't touch any client data." That last one made me smile. See, when you do things the right way, there's no crime to investigate. I didn't steal anything, didn't delete anything, didn't hack anything. I just stopped doing the job they didn't want me to do anymore. Around 12:30 p.m., I decided to grab lunch at McGinty's, this Irish place downtown where the financial crowd hangs out. Good bourbon, better steaks, and the kind of atmosphere where deals get made over handshakes. Plus, I figured if I was going to celebrate the beginning of my new career, I might as well do it properly. I was halfway through a very nice glass of Jameson when Charles Hartwell himself walked through the door. Now, Charles is what you'd call old Dallas money, the kind of guy whose grandfather struck oil and whose father turned that oil into real estate empire. Problem is, Charles never had to fight for anything in his life, and it shows. He raised his daughter the same way, thinking the world owed them something just for showing up. He spotted me in the corner booth and walked over like a man heading to his own execution. "Ryan," he said, sliding into the seat across from me without being invited. "We need to talk." "Charles, how's the agility initiative working out for you?" His face went red. "Cut the crap. You know what you're doing." I took a slow sip of my bourbon and set the glass down carefully. "I'm having lunch. What are you doing?" "I'm trying to save my company from someone who's clearly lost his mind." Jeffrey Palmer called me an hour ago. So did Margaret Richardson and Colonel Blackwood. All talking about transfers. Sounds like your clients are making business decisions. That's what clients do. Don't play games with me, Ryan. These people have been with us for years. No, Charles. They've been with me for years. There's a difference. You could see the realization hitting him like a freight train. For the first time in his privileged life, Charles Hartwell was understanding the difference between owning a business and running one. "Come back," he said, and his voice cracked just a little. "We can fix this. Same title, more money, whatever you want. Just stop this." "Can't do it, Charles. I've already signed with Summit. Besides, your daughter made it clear that I'm old-school infrastructure that's holding you back. Wouldn't want to slow down all that agility. Brooke made a mistake. Brooke made a choice. She chose to fire the guy who built half your revenue stream because she thought she could do it better. Now she gets to find out if she was right. Charles leaned forward, desperation creeping into his voice. I'll double your salary, triple it, name your price. Charles, this isn't about money, this is about respect. Your daughter fired me at 5:45 in the morning like I was some junior clerk who missed too many days. After 15 years of building your business, carrying your family name, making sure your clients were happy even when your systems were garbage. She's young. She'll learn. She'll learn all right. Question is whether you'll still have a company left to teach her with. I finished my bourbon and stood up. Enjoy your lunch, Charles. I hear the salmon's good here. Walking back to Summit's office, I felt lighter than I had in months. You know that feeling when you finally stand up to someone who's been pushing you around? When you realize they need you more than you need them? That's exactly what this was. But Charles wasn't done fighting. Around 3 p.m., my new office phone rang. It was Gerald Wong, Hartwell's general counsel. Ryan, this is Gerald. We need to discuss your recent actions regarding client solicitation. Hello, Gerald. Lovely day, isn't it? This isn't a social call. We have reason to believe you're in violation of your employment agreement. Section 4, paragraph 2, specifically prohibits working with competitors for 18 months. I leaned back in my new leather chair. Summit definitely had better office furniture than Hartwell, and smiled. Gerald, do you have the signed copy of that agreement? Of course we do. It's in your file. Is it? Because I seem to recall HR sending out an email about 3 years ago asking everyone to re-sign their employment docs after that office move. Something about files getting misplaced during the transition. Silence on the line. Beautiful, expensive silence. I'm looking at the digital copy right now, Gerald blustered. Digital copy that says what exactly? Pending signature, maybe? Because that's what mine said when I checked before I left. More silence. We will bury you in litigation, Gerald threatened, but his voice had lost its edge. You can try, but while you're spending money on lawyers, your clients are spending money with me. Might want to focus on that bleeding before you worry about lawsuits you can't win. I hung up and immediately called Lucas. How are you feeling about bourbon? I asked. I'm feeling great about bourbon. Why? Because Colonel Blackwood just texted. He wants to celebrate the transfer with a proper toast. Apparently, he's got a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle he's been saving for special occasions. Pappy Van Winkle? For a client meeting? Ryan, I think I'm going to like having you on the team. Outside my new corner office window, I could see the Hartwell building across downtown. Somewhere in there, Brooke was probably crying into her protein bar, trying to figure out how her brilliant agility strategy had blown up in her face. But the best part? We were just getting started. Thursday morning brought the kind of news that makes you believe in cosmic justice. I was sitting in my new office at Summit working through my first week's worth of client transition paperwork when Lucas knocked on my door with a grin that could light up downtown Dallas. You need to see this, he said, tossing a copy of the Dallas Business Journal on my desk. The headline read, Hartwell and Associates stock tumbles 15% as major clients defect. Below that, in smaller print, Board calls emergency review of executive leadership. I poured myself a cup of coffee, real coffee, not that fancy stuff Brooke always ordered, and started reading. The article was beautiful in its brutal honesty. Sources close to the firm indicate that approximately $120 million in assets under management have been transferred to competitors following what insiders describe as a catastrophic personnel decision by VP of Operations Brooke Hartwell. Lucas sat down across from my desk. Gets better. My contact at the Business Journal says they're planning a follow-up piece. Apparently, Charles gave them an interview yesterday where he tried to blame everything on unforeseen market volatility and coordinated competitive attacks. Coordinated competitive attacks, I repeated. That's what they're calling it when clients choose to follow their account manager. Best part is the reporter asked him point blank why they fired you if you were so valuable. Charles said, and I quote, personnel decisions are always difficult in a dynamic market environment. Corporate speak for my daughter screwed up and I don't know how to fix it. Around 10 a.m., my personal phone started buzzing with texts from the Hartwell refugees. The building was apparently in full panic mode. Board meeting went nuclear, Jessica from accounting texted. Heard shouting from the conference room. Charles stormed out 20 minutes ago. Another message from Cody. They're calling it a strategic restructuring. HR is asking everyone to update their resumes as a precautionary measure. But the text that made my day came from Ashley Morrison at Summit. Colonel Blackwood just called. He wants to move up that bourbon celebration to tonight. Says he's got news to share. So at 6:00 p.m., I found myself in the private dining room at the Dallas Petroleum Club, sharing a bottle of 20-year-old Pappy Van Winkle with a retired Army colonel who understood the value of loyalty and competence. To new beginnings, Colonel Blackwood said, raising his glass. To old-fashioned business values, I replied. We drank, and the bourbon went down smooth as silk. The kind of smooth that only comes from patience, time, and knowing what you're doing. Got some news for you, Ryan, the colonel said, setting down his glass. Margaret Richardson called me this afternoon. Apparently the word's getting around about what happened at Hartwell. 3 other firms have reached out to her asking if she knows any other displaced professionals looking for new opportunities. You're kidding. Dead serious. Turns out Brooks' little agility experiment has become a cautionary tale. Other CEOs are looking at their own nepotism hires and asking hard questions. I poured another round. This was better than any revenge I could have planned. But here's the real kicker, Colonel Blackwood continued. My nephew works for one of the pension funds that was considering investing with Hartwell. After this week's performance, they've pulled out of talks entirely. Apparently, operational instability was the phrase they used. We were interrupted by my phone buzzing. Text message from an unknown number. This is Hunter Hartwell. Can we talk? I think I made a mistake supporting my cousin. I showed the message to Colonel Blackwood. He laughed so hard he nearly choked on his bourbon. Kids jumping ship, he said. Smart move. Probably the first smart move anyone in that family's made all week. I typed back, happy to talk. Monday morning, 9:00 a.m., coffee shop on Main Street. Here's the thing about teaching lessons. Sometimes the students surprise you. Friday brought the coup de grace. Lucas called me into his office around noon with news that was almost too good to believe. Just got off the phone with an old friend at Hartwell's bank, he said. Apparently they're calling in their line of credit early. The 15% stock drop spooked some major creditors. How early? 30 days instead of the usual 90. They're citing material adverse changes in business conditions as justification. I sat down hard in the chair across from Lucas's desk. In the military, we had a term for this. Mission accomplished with extreme prejudice. There's more, Lucas continued. Charles is apparently shopping the firm around, looking for a buyer before the whole thing collapses. Any takers? 1. Sinclair Financial out of Houston. But they're only interested in the client list and office lease. They want to gut the whole operation and start fresh with their own people. Which meant Brooks' brilliant agility strategy had turned her family's company into spare parts. That evening, I sat on my apartment balcony with a glass of bourbon, looking out at the Dallas skyline. Somewhere in one of those glass towers, Brooke was probably updating her LinkedIn profile and trying to figure out how to explain her brief tenure as VP of Operations. But this wasn't really about Brooke. This was about something bigger. About competence versus entitlement, about earning respect versus inheriting it. About understanding that in business, like in the military, you're only as strong as the people who trust you to lead them. 3 months later, Summit Capital had grown our Dallas office by 40%. Hartwell and Associates became a cautionary tale taught in business schools about the dangers of nepotism and poor personnel management. Hunter Hartwell, as it turned out, was actually pretty sharp when he wasn't following his cousin's lead. I hired him as a junior analyst. Kid's got potential. He just needed to learn from someone who actually knew the business. As for me, I'm still here, still managing the same clients I've been taking care of for years, still remembering medication schedules and family anniversaries and all the little details that actually matter. The only difference is that now I work for people who appreciate what that's worth. And that, my friends, is how you handle getting fired by someone who thinks their MBA is worth more than your experience. You don't get mad, you don't get even. You just let them discover exactly what you were worth when you're not there anymore. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being professional.